The metal walls of the truck rattled violently as it hurtled down the highway, the engine roaring like a caged beast. The air inside was thick, a stifling blend of sweat and fear, pressing down on the 5 captives like an invisible hand squeezing the last breath from their lungs. Vivian, Aiken, Shania, Xavier, and Edwin sat huddled together in silence, their backs against the freezing steel, their wrists bound by thick plastic ties that bit into their skin with every jolt of the vehicle. Vivian's heart pounded against her ribs, every thud a desperate plea to be reunited with her children. She could see them in her mind, their innocent eyes wide with fear, their tiny hands reaching for her, but she wasn't there to hold them. A silent sob racked her body, but she held it in, biting her lip so hard it nearly bled. Breaking down wouldn't help them now. Surviving would. But could they? Beside her, Xavier's head rested against the metal, his expression vacant, his mind miles away. His wife. His son. The family he had fought so hard to rebuild. The family he might never see again. Were they safe? Or had the sons of Arian already reached them? The uncertainty gnawed at him, hollowing him out from the inside. He had once found solace in a bottle, drowning out the pain with whiskey until Paul pulled him from the abyss. Paul. The thought of his old friend struck him like a blade. He had to survive. He had to make it back. But the odds were against them. A shift in movement caught Xavier's eye. Shania was looking at him, her gaze piercing through the shadows, searching for something, reassurance, maybe, or permission to surrender to the inevitable. He saw the torment in her, the echoes of their past carved into the lines of her face. They had been here before, standing on the precipice of something too dangerous to name. In the dimly lit meetings, they had danced on the edge of temptation, drawn to each other like moths to a flame, but she had stepped back, allowing him to honor his vows. Now, fate had thrown them together again, this time with no tomorrow promised. No consequences. No regrets. Shania swallowed hard, then leaned in, pressing her lips to his in a kiss that was desperate, aching, final. She pulled back, her voice barely above a whisper. This doesn't mean anything if we survive. But if we're going to die, I want to be with you. Xavier closed his eyes, his breath catching in his throat. Every part of him screamed to pull away, to keep his promise, to be the man his family needed. But another part, the part that had longed for her, that had never stopped wanting her, won out. He cupped her face, his thumb tracing the curve of her cheek, then kissed her back with the same desperation, the same fire. When he finally pulled away, his voice was hoarse. Every part of me is drawn to you, Shania. I've tried for years to get over you, but I can't. His voice cracked. But I made vows. I have to honor my family. I have to honor Paul. She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. I know. Her hands trembled in her lap. We're poison for each other. But if this is our last night. Her voice broke, but she forced a bitter smile. Then let us burn together. Across from them, Aiken sat motionless, his sharp eyes locked on the front of the truck, where their captors muttered amongst themselves. He listened, absorbing every word. The gang members spoke of cops, how, at first, they had certain officers under their thumb, but now that pressure was mounting, the police were finally hunting them down. This was their weakness. Aiken glanced at Edwin, who met his gaze and gave a slight nod. If they escaped, if they played their cards right, there was a chance. But it wouldn't be easy. Edwin had been in a gang once, the Hog Hunters, but he wasn't like Aiken. Aiken was precise. A killer forged in fire and necessity. Edwin wasn't sure if he had it in him to take a life again, but survival had a way of stripping men down to their rawest instincts. He glanced at the plastic ties cutting into his wrists, at the weapons strapped to their captors' belts. They had to act fast. Then, as if the universe wanted to remind them just how helpless they were, the truck screeched to a sudden halt. A flood of harsh light poured in as the metal doors were thrown open. The roar of a crowd filled their ears, a sound that sent a chill down their spines. The stench of sweat, blood, and something more primal hit them like a wave. Aiken was the first to move, shifting forward to take in their surroundings. He cursed under his breath. They weren't just prisoners. They weren't bargaining chips. They were entertainment. A death match. A playground for the worst of society. And they were the next contenders.